Hi guys, I have shocking news for you, and I really hate breaking it to you, but Yahweh was a reptilian alien from another dimension, and Steven Spielberg will never disclose that to you. I know what you think, but hear me out. Stay with me until the end. I promise you, it will blow your mind. And I want to remind everyone who doesn't know me that my previous books were praised by leading scholars, so I know how to research. Usually I present my best evidence by the end of my videos, but in this case, I'll begin with it so that you don't stop watching because of the outrageous thesis. I don't know why nobody in over 2000 years picked up on that, but just read the following verses. 2 Samuel chapter 22, verse 9. In my distress, I cried to the Lord, Yahweh. I always put the word which is really used in the Hebrew Bible, so just that you know about whom we are talking, and called to my God Eloi, and he heard my voice from his temple. My cry for help reached his ears. Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations of heaven shook. They shook, for his anger was kindled. Smoke went up from his nose. Devouring fire came out of his mouth. Glowing coals spouted from him. Psalm 18:8. Black smoke billowed out of his nose, flames blazed from his mouth, and glowing coals were thrown out. Isaiah 30:27. His lips quiver with rage, and his tongue sprays fire. Verse 33. The breath of the Lord, Yahweh, fiery like a stream of red-hot lava, sets everything on fire. So he himself sets it on fire. These are clear descriptions of a fire-spitting dragon, a reptilian being. Now it becomes clear why the Israelites should not make an image of him. Instead, Yahweh transforms Moses' staff into a serpent, Exodus 4:3, and Moses sets up a serpent made of copper, Exodus 21:9, which could well be interpreted as a reference to the reptilian nature of Yahweh. In John 8:44, Jesus says to a group of Jews, "You have the devil for a father, and you want to do your father's desires." But in Revelation 12:9, the devil is identified with the dragon. And the great dragon was cast out, the old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So clearly, the New Testament identifies the devil with the dragon. I go deep into that in my book, of course. This is only the best evidence for this video. But in general, reptiles are all over the Bible. Genesis 3:14, the Lord said to the serpent, "You will crawl on your belly and you will eat dust all the days of your life." This, of course, implies that the reptile was able to stand upright beforehand. It was also able to speak. So was it a humanoid-looking reptile? There's even a rabbi, Ariel Bar Zadok. He seems to think so. He taught the History Channel in the series Ancient Aliens. The serpent not only spoke, but stood erect, had arms and legs, and clearly intelligence. We are describing a pre-Adamic, earth-based reptilian. And this we find echoed in legends and teachings from cultures around the world. So one of the great pre-Adamic civilizations clearly was a reptilian humanoid. And these are referred to as seraphim. Well, Yahweh himself commands an army of seraphim in the Bible, which obviously were reptilians. The word seraph comes from the Hebrew saraph, meaning the burning one, but biblical scholar and Professor Dr. Karen Randolph Jones concludes that the seraphim are probably winged serpents drawn from Egyptian royal and sacral symbolism. This view is supported, for example, by Professor Moshe Weinfeld, who translates seraphim as flying serpents, and Professor Benjamin Sommer, who points to ancient Judean seals, showing them as winged serpent-like beings. So here, maybe one again, the literal quote of Professor Karen Randolph-Jones: "The seraphim are probably winged serpents drawn from Egyptian royal and sacral symbolism." There are many articles about that, actually. Maybe we show some of them. And it's even in Strong's Concordance, so the lexicon for the Bible. It says there, from H8313, burning, that is figuratively poisonous serpent, and parentheses, specifically a seraph or symbol creature from the copper collar, fiery serpent seraph. That's in Strong's Concordance. But now let's examine if Yahweh himself is an alien, meaning a physical being from another dimension or realm. So I don't necessarily think that aliens come from other planets. I think they're interdimensional beings. And of course, I go deep into that topic in my book, The Open Secret. So, and what's interesting here, you heard it, many people, including prominent politicians and public figures, are increasingly talking about the Book of Enoch and the Nephilim. Whereas Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who chairs the House Task Force on UAP disclosure, has repeatedly urged people to read the Book of Enoch and link the watchers to modern interdimensional UAP encounters.
Well, some of them are written by prophets, but I mean, Enoch is apparently supposed to predate even the time of Genesis and talk.
The nuttiest one is Ezekiel.
I'm telling you, Enoch is even crazier than Ezekiel.
Congresswoman Lauren Boebert has stated that the released UFO files point to fallen angels and Nephilim described in the Bible.
But the more I look into this, the more I see the Old Testament and what was told to us there of fallen angels and Nephilim. I mean, this is in the Bible. There's nothing that says that fallen angels, that Nephilim just disappeared.
Similarly, Tucker Carlson has openly discussed the Nephilim and fallen angels, while Joe Rogan has explored the Book of Enoch and its connections to ancient aliens multiple times on his podcast. These are the most famous podcasters in the world. But nobody asks the obvious question. Enoch walked with Elohim. The Bible says he walked with Elohim and he was not, for Elohim took him. So that's translated with God, of course, in the Bible. In Genesis 1:26, Elohim says, let us, Elohim say, let us make man in our image after our likeness. The Hebrew word used here is Elohim, a plural noun. Why does a supposedly singular God speak in plural? So clearly, the Elohim created Adam and not Yahweh. Then in Genesis 6, the sons of God, Benai Elohim, came down, took human woman, and produced the Nephilim. Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God, Benai Elohim, went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. So if the sons of Elohim were physical beings who could mate with human women and create hybrid offspring, and if Elohim itself is plural, why do we assume that Yahweh or the Elohim is a purely non-physical spiritual being? So of course, as I will show, Yahweh was only one of the Elohim, but either way, even if it was God, even if you say they were the sons of God, if the sons of God are physical beings, what is God then? It's pure, simple logic. Yahweh is one of the Elohim, and he is mortal, and I prove it to you. This becomes very clear in Psalm 82, which shows a divine council of multiple Elohim. Verse 1, Elohim stands in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the Elohim. Verse 6, I have said, you are Elohim, and all of you are sons of the Most High. I will show you in a minute that this is not Yahweh. Nevertheless, you shall die like man and fall like one of the princes. so the Elohim, are mortal. This fits perfectly with the older pre-Masoretic reading, Masoretic reading of Deuteronomy 32, 8-9, preserved in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Here you read, and that's key, when Elion, the Most High, so that's the Most High, and that's the explanation in other, in lexicon and so on, gave the nations their inheritance. When he separated the sons of man, he set the bounds of the peoples according to the number of the sons of Elohim. For Yahweh's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. So the earth is divided into 70 nations, and Yahweh has only one of them, Israel. And that's why he's going out and trying to conquer the rest of the world, because he doesn't like that. Again, I go deeply into that in my book. So this version is widely accepted by textual scholars as reflecting an earlier reading than the Masoretic text. They change. It's reflected. The change to sons of Israel, that's what we have in later copies, is often explained as a scribal adjustment to avoid implications of a divine council or other heavenly beings. And I have even a Jewish website, thetorah.com, which is all about the Torah. The empty sons of Israel reflects a conscious intervention in the text by a scribe uncomfortable with the polytheistic picture of divine beings, and thus that scribe demythologized the original polytheistic description by replacing the word God with Israel. So here you have it. It was later changed. And we know that from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and otherwise, if you read the whole thing in the Bible, it doesn't make sense. I mean, you can think about that yourself. So Yahweh is not portrayed here as the singular supreme eternal God of the entire universe. He is one of the Elohim. The Bible itself describes Yahweh's appearances in very physical, technological terms. It's all over the Bible. All the examples are in my book again, but I give you just a few. So there's the book of Ezekiel. Everybody talks about the book of Ezekiel. Erich von Däniken, I think, was the first one who at least popularized that this is a UFO encounter. And I also, shortly before his death, I sent him my thesis, but unfortunately he was so sick already, I think he never read it. So I don't know what he really thought about Yahweh himself. Maybe you can help me in the commentary. I did not read all of his books. But the interesting thing here is, in the book of Ezekiel, the prophet gives one of the clearest ancient accounts of what many interpreted as UFO encounter. He describes shining metal, wheels within wheels, and a figure like a man seated on a throne above it all. So it's very clear if you read that this is a UFO. Ezekiel calls this craft the kavod of Yahweh, a word that literally means weight and heaviness, but they translate it with glory. The main Mario Biglino, I think is his name, is the main guy who discovered that. Because it's not my native language, I write everything down. So yeah, the sources of course, and the other scholars are all in my book. Ezekiel 3:12. And the Spirit, Ruach, lifted me up, and I heard behind me the sound of a great roar, as the glory, the kavod of the Lord Yahweh aroused from their place, and the sound of the wings of living creatures touching one another, and the whirring of wheels simultaneously with them, and the sounds of a great roar. And that's important. And the Spirit lifted me up and took me away. And I went on my way, fierce in the agitation of my spirit, and the hand of the Lord was hard upon me. And I came to Tel Abib, to those who were led away, who dwelt by the river Kiba, and I stayed with those who dwelt there, and sat there, stunned in the midst 7 days. So you see, he was taken from this place to another place. So it was not some ghostly appearance. It was a physical craft, and it took him somewhere. So, and he's speaking of Yahweh here. because I think many ancient, I don't know every ancient alien researcher, but there's, this serious, I don't know if they ever come to Yahweh there, but they always talk about this UFO encounter and rarely about Yahweh. I don't know. I can, I didn't watch, I think I did not watch one of them. I researched it myself. I went into the Bible and I discovered this. And then I researched, okay, who already talked about it? And I never saw anyone talking about Yahweh being a dragon. I don't know. Maybe I missed it. Yeah. Maybe I'm not the first one, but it's clear as day. So most ancient alien researchers accept that as a UFO encounter, but do not make the next step. Ezekiel is about Yahweh, not some other figure. So Exodus 33. And there you see that, I mean, that's very clear because Moses is involved. So it's about him meeting Yahweh. And it happened every time when Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud descended and stood at the entrance to the tent. And the Lord spoke to Moses. And all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing on the entrance to the tent. And all the people rose up and prostrated themselves, each at the entrance to his tent. And Yahweh spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. Then he returned to the camp. So it is a physical being. There are many other passages. They are all in my book where you see that Yahweh is a physical being and he has very earthly needs. We will see that later. But Moses demands proof that he is dealing with the right person. Verse 18, but he said, let me see your glory, your kebodekar, which is the. So it is not enough that Yahweh is traveling with this pillar of cloud. This does not seem to be a special occurrence in these times. He wants more proof. So because everybody can say, I'm this, I'm God, but because he was an alien, Moses needed proof that he also has his craft. Verse 20, then he said, you cannot bear to see my face, for no man can see me and live. Why is that? Then the Lord said, behold, there is a place near me where you shall stand on the rock. And it shall come to pass when my glory, Kabod, passes by, that I will place you in the cave of the rock and hold my hand over you in protection until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand and you will see me from behind, but my face must not be seen. This is a physical encounter. So he protects Moses from the radiation of the craft. This is very clear. I mean, there's no other interpretation. And then he will remove my hand and he cannot see his face. Most likely he has some hoodie like, the Emperor in Star Wars. And I think the elites know all of this, what I'm telling you. That's why they put these things in films, but not as clear as I'm telling you now. So here too, it is completely obvious that a physical being is acting to protect Moses from the radiation of the Kabod. Kabod is not an abstract concept, but a concrete thing that passes by and is dangerous. Moses is told to hide in a rocky cave, and Yahweh also protects him with his hand. I wrote it down and, to be more precise. We see how dangerous the radiation of the Kabod is when Moses descends from Mount Sinai after making the covenant with Yahweh. In Exodus 24, we learn that the Kabod landed on the mountain. And the glory, the Kabod, of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And on the 7th day, he called to Moses from the midst of the cloud. Now the appearance of the glory, Kabod, of the Lord Yahweh was before the eyes of the sons of Israel, like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain. But Moses went into the midst of the cloud and went up to the mountain. And Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So it's very clear. It's not some ghostly appearance. It's an object where it's going to. I mean, you just have to read it. Here too, it is quite clear that it is not an abstract concept. How could a glory settle and look like consuming fire? When Moses came down from the mountain after speaking with Yahweh, his face was glowing so intensely from the radiation that he had to wear a wheel. So you see Exodus 34, I don't read everything, but Moses did not know the skin of his face had become radiant when he had spoken to him. Because of the radiation, it's totally clear. Yahweh is consistently portrayed as a physical, powerful being who travels in a technological vehicle, the cabot, and interacts with humans in a very literal corporal way. For example, the Ark of the Covenant was clearly a communication device and an extremely dangerous one. The Bible says Yahweh spoke directly from the space between the two cherubim on the ark. Exodus 25:22. There above the cover between the two cherubim that are over the Ark of the Covenant law, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the Israelites. So that's like, yeah, his face is appearing there. It's a communication device. There's absolutely no doubt. But this is not new. I mean, these ancient aliens researchers, or there are even videos where they or reconstructions of that and so on. That's not a new thing. But maybe for you it's new because yeah, it didn't research that topic yet. It functioned like a direct communication terminal, but it was also highly charged with power. When Uzzah merely touched it to steady it, he died instantly. 2 Samuel 6:6-7. Later, when some men from Beth Shemesh looked inside the ark out of curiosity, it says here, God struck down some of the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, putting 70 of them to death because they looked into the ark of the Lord. When the Philistines captured the ark, it brought deadly plagues and tumors where it went until they desperately sent it back. This was no ordinary holy box. It behaved like advanced technology that emitted lethal energy if not handled correctly. But here's the dark part. Yahweh repeatedly demanded child sacrifice, ordered genocides, and showed a ruthless, bloodthirsty character throughout the Old Testament. Just read it. I covered this dark side of Yahweh in much more detail in my previous video. I highly recommend watching it if you want the full picture. Just one example here, Yahweh's confession. I even allowed them, Ezekiel 20:26, to burn the eldest sons as sacrifices and defile themselves in such a terrible way. This was to frighten them and make them realize that I am Yahweh. You could say, you see here that it was for a purpose. According to scholars and the Talmud, Abraham really sacrificed Isaac, and Moloch is not a deity, but the name of the ritual for child sacrifice to Yahweh. But even if you don't accept it, if you don't want to watch my previous video, everybody knows he killed the firstborn of the Egyptians, firstborn children, and he ordered to kill the children of Amalek. He is a child murderer, and of course that is a child sacrifice. But however you put it, he's a child killer. But it gets even darker. I spared this for this video because this is key. After the war against the Midianites, Moses ordered the killing of all males and non-virgin women. Numbers 31. Moses, instigated by Yahweh, is angry that the army leaders have not slaughtered enough people, meaning sacrificed them. And that's in the Bible. Moses was angry with the leaders of the army, the captains of thousands and of hundreds who came out of the battle, and said to them, why have you let all the women and girls live? Behold, did not these, by the counsel of Balaam, turn the Israelites away from the Lord in the matter of Peor, so that a plague befell the congregation of the Lord? Now therefore kill every male among the children and all the women who have known a man and have lain with him, but all the girls who have not yet lain with a man, let them live for yourselves. So the female virgins were spared. So all are to be slaughtered except the virgins, whom the Israelites are to take as booty. But Yahweh also wants his share. And the half that belonged to those who went out to the battle was 370,500 sheep, and so on. In verse 40, likewise 16,000 people, of which 32 were attributed to the Lord. So he gets 23 virgins, because there are only virgins left. So what did a supposedly non-physical God want with 32 young virgins as his personal share? If he was not a physical being with physical desires, why specifically demand untouched young women? You could say, yeah, he wanted to save them, but then he would have also saved the young boys. He specifically wanted young girls. Epstein, anyone? No, he most likely raped them. Today, many people claim, or some people claim they have been sexually assaulted or raped by reptilian beings. Here are some of the most well-known accounts. Kathy O'Brien, one of the most famous MK Ultra survivors, described how George W. Bush shapeshifted into a reptilian in front of her during abuse. But she maintains it was done with holographic technology. But how can she be sure? How can she be sure? Arizona Wilder, David Icke interviewed her, claimed she was ritually abused by shapeshifting reptilian elites, including British loyals, but later stated that this experience may have been programmed or implanted memories. I think she even said she's sure it was implanted memories. But how can she be sure? You have the memory, how can you distinguish it? And we have one who still sticks to the story, Juliet Bryant. She's also in my book. A survivor of Jeffrey Epstein stated that Epstein physically shapeshifted into a reptilian being during one of the abuse sessions and insists it was real. Maybe just here, David Icke is not saying they are really shapeshifting. He says more or less that they send, they have another frequency and you see this other frequency. They are not very physically shapeshifting, though it's not necessary for the whole theory. Neera Terrella Isley, former US Air Force radar operator, described under hypnosis being repeatedly raped by reptilian beings during abductions and maintains the experience were completely real. She also talks about fourth dimensional reptiles. Why I think Yahweh was a interdimensional being, I go into that deeper in my book and later in videos. But here she also talks about fourth dimensional reptiles, and she's not that unknown. She was recently 1 year ago on the Redacted show. So that's a former Fox News anchor, Fox News journalist. I did not see it yet, what she says there, but I'm sure it's interesting. So these testimonies raise a disturbing question. If Yahweh demanded 32 virgin girls as his personal share thousands of years ago, what has really changed? Is there a cult who knows this? As I said before, I think, and in my other video, that the secret society is at the top. This is the big secret. That everybody unknowingly is worshipping an entity who wants child sacrifice and maybe even rapes minors. I think that's the secret at the top, and nobody knows that. Nobody writes about it because it's really, really secret. But it's logical. If I can find that out, don't you think that secret societies could have either find it out or transported it through the hundreds of years in secret? The Freemasonry, you think it stops at the 33rd degree, and we pretty much know what's in there. But what is above that? And there are people who say there are grades above that. So, and US Congressman Alec Burleson was briefed by Pentagon insiders and confirmed the existence of 4 non-human species, explicitly including reptilians.
A meeting that we had with people like Lou Elizondo and Eric Davis, and Eric Davis said to me, and you can watch this video, he said that we've identified 4 different species of aliens, and he went on to name them. And I mean, I didn't drop my jaw, but my jaw was dropping.
I've seen that interview with you. Yeah, it's one of them was the reptilian.
Prominent pastor Perry Stone revealed that US government officials held a secret briefing with top pastors warning them about very strange reptilian-looking creatures.
There's going to be a release concerning aliens and concerning unidentified flying object spacecraft that some of the people who were in the meeting were telling us as pastors, you need to prepare your people and you need to get ready to answer them for what you're about to hear being released. And some of it has to do with crafts that have been discovered that are not allegedly a part of our planet, and the materials they're made of are not a part of our planet. Very strange reptilian-looking creatures, and other things that almost sound like something out of a sci-fi movie or an Orson Welles book.
And do you really think the Vatican doesn't know all of this? Why then does the Pope Audience Hall have the shape of a snake's head? Why is Jesus, which is God for most Christians, depicted as a shape-shifting reptilian? I showed you the pictures. Of course, it's a matter of interpretation, but just make up your own mind. And why does the Vatican consider the possibility of aliens? They said that officially. There's even a CBS News article about it. So just to summarize it, if you read David Icke, or I also have it in my book, there's a lot of history, a lot of myths about reptilian gods. A lot of it's all over the world. So I showed you now that Yahweh is even identified with a dragon. So all these talks, and we have so much legends about dragons. Why do you have legends about dragons if they don't exist? I mean, it's not that normal. And so we have these old legends, and we have now people talking about reptilians. So why should that have been stopped? It's very logical to conclude that they were always there. And one thing about the UFO scene with Moses, for me, that's the best proof that really happened. Because how can somebody describe a UFO encounter with the language then, and now we can decipher it so easily? You know what I mean? It can't be an invention because it's clearly a physical encounter. So with the words from back then, he described it, the author, as good as possible. And now we can, because we know what the UFOs are, say, yeah, well, that's a UFO. You know, that means that really happened. So the best proof for aliens and UFOs are in the most read book in the world. And now the grand finale, in my opinion. Professor Haim Eshed, former head of Israel's space security program for nearly 30 years and a retired brigadier general in the defense ministry, publicly stated that Israel and the United States have been working together with extraterrestrials, a so-called galactic federation. That was even in the Jerusalem Post. Given what we have witnessed in Gaza, the scale of destruction and brutality, these can hardly be benevolent, peaceful aliens. So here is the final question. If their God Yahweh was himself one of the Elohim, a physical, mortal, bloodthirsty reptilian being who demanded virgin girls and ordered genocides and child sacrifice, are the aliens that modern Israel is allegedly working with the same reptilians? Think about it.
And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. All that openeth the matrix is mine, and every firstling among thy cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, but thou shalt not borrow. And thou shalt reign over many nations, but they shall not reign over thee. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given.